All right. Welcome back to No BS Just News with Steve. As always, I'm your host. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the best YouTube around. Just kidding. Hey, I wanted to bring you guys a story here, and I'm not gonna read the whole thing. I'm gonna go over it, but it's from Dave Ramsey. If you guys don't know who Dave Ramsey is, he's a really well-known debt consolidation type guy. He has a lot of good ways of how to save your money. He doesn't believe in any type of debt. He's got a lot of steps to help you. They're called baby steps. Go check him out. A buddy of mine kind of introduced me to him. I kind of knew him, but I started following him, and I never really followed his program, but here and there, it works. But he really doesn't believe in having. He actually doesn't believe in having car payments, any kind of credit cards. You got to pay everything off. You got to have a 6 months worth of income in a savings account. So if you fall into like a scenario where you're just waiting on your stimulus and you don't have money to pay your rent or bills or whatever, that's where that comes in. So you should have 6 months worth of savings to cover all your living expenses. He gets the concept of having a mortgage. He'd rather you have that mortgage paid off, but just overview, he doesn't believe in debt, and he works steps to get you through that. Here's the thing. It says Dave Ramsey is against stimulus checks because if $600 or $1,400 changes your life, you were pretty much screwed already, he says. So he's a millionaire, right? He's made a lot of money off what he does, and he's good at it. But I think what bothers me with this is Dave Ramsey's filed bankruptcy, I think at least twice. Once for sure, and I think twice. So he's been in a situation that obviously he was completely in debt, or whatever his situation is. I can't remember, so I won't put a bunch of stuff out there that I'm not particularly sure on, but I know that he's filed bankruptcy at least once. So to give that perspective, especially in a time of complete need in America, whatever the circumstance is, I don't agree with it, and I've lost some respect for him in that sense. Because you filed bankruptcy, Dave, and I think you did it twice. So don't be a hypocrite when you were in the same exact situation, because if bankruptcy wasn't available, what would you have done, pal? It's just ridiculous. So he says, personal finance guru Dave Ramsey says people need $1,000 emergency fund and 6 months of living expenses to cover themselves if they get into a situation like we're in now, a pandemic or whatever, before the pandemic. But you should always have $1,000 on hand and at least 6 months of savings to cover anything when you may have lost your job or whatever the situation is, to cover your bills. He also says that $600 or $1,400 stimulus checks would be a lifeline for you during the current pandemic state of emergency. You were pretty much screwed already. The radio host and author argued against President Joe Biden's proposed round of stimulus checks while speaking on Fox News on Thursday, today, telling America's Newsroom that I don't believe in a stimulus check. Knock it off, Dave. You have a career problem, he says. You have a debt problem. You have a relationship problem. You have a mental health problem. He continued, something else is going on if $600 changes your life. $600 isn't changing your life, it's just helping you if you're in a time of need, which millions of Americans are, and which he was in once, if not twice. I think maybe I'll get back to you on that. He says, I'm not talking down to folks, as he's been bankrupt himself, and he helps people who are hurting financially every day. So being bankrupt yourself, relax. But he argued that the government stimulus checks are just throwing money at a problem rather than fixing the underlying issue. Does he have a point there? Possibly. He says, colorfully, peeing on a forest fire is what we're doing. It's absolutely ridiculous. A video clip of his stimulus marks went viral on Twitter on Thursday afternoon, with many people offended by the contempt and disdain he appeared to show for people who are struggling. Oops, that may cost you some money there, Dave. Others accused him of ignoring the systemic inequalities across the country that were already widening the wealth gap and keeping minorities, women, and low-income Americans in poverty before anyone even heard of COVID-19, and which have been only exacerbated by a deadly pandemic that continues to be more than 1 million, or continues to see more than 1 million applications for unemployment benefits being filed each week. Unreal. That's a lot. Prior to the pandemic, many Americans were already in a precarious financial position. The 2018 Federal Reserve Board Economic Well-Being Report found that 4 in 10 Americans couldn't cover a $400 emergency expense. And CNN report that same year found that 1 in 4 Americans had no emergency fund whatsoever. The coronavirus pandemic has only compounded that problem. Indeed, Ramsey's most prolific nugget of personal finance advice, that those paying off debt kept a $1,000 starter emergency fund, has become obsolete. Many people struggling to make ends meet have remarked on Reddit that socking away 3 to 6 months worth of essential expenses in case of emergency ran out long ago, Dave. And stimulus checks and unemployment benefits have been key to keeping their heads above water. In the meantime, millions of Americans are waiting with bated breath to see whether they will be getting $1,400 stimulus checks as part of President Biden's proposed $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief package. It's alarming to look at how many Americans use these funds to keep a roof over their head and pay for necessities, Dave says. Quit it, Dave. Quit it. What's wrong with you, man? It's ridiculous. It just bothers me, and I've lost some respect for him. Sensitivity issues aside, people are saying, I agree with the man, and a lot of people are saying, what a jerk. There are a lot of people in the world who are living paycheck to paycheck. It never hurts to lend them a helping hand now and then. We pay a lot in taxes. And if we were to have that money in our pocket, it would help us, right? But then there would be no Social Security fund for our grandparents, our grandparents' parents, our parents now. Us Americans going into the future, and like if I make it to let's see, probably I would say 2040-ish, I'll be ready to call it quits. I'll be up there in age if I make it that long, because I'm already up there in age. But I don't know. Let me know your thoughts, and if you agree with somebody who's went through bankruptcy already, huge. He did a Chapter 7 total liquidation, got rid of all of his debt, and he turned his life around, and now he's a multi-millionaire, and he does this debt program where, like I said, you got to have $1,000 emergency fund, and 6 months worth of savings to make it. But as people are saying, 6 months of savings isn't nothing when you're unemployed, you're going through a pandemic. Dave fails to realize that we've never seen anything like this in our lifetime. So I don't really know when the stimulus check will go out. There's a lot of new updates that I'll bring you tomorrow, but thanks for tuning in. I definitely appreciate it. And remember, it's okay not to be okay, but just don't stay that way. Get yourself up out of the issue or concern you're having, and seek the help that you need. Like I've said in my past videos, I've been through anxiety and stress my whole life, but I really went through it in my early 20s, and it really disabled me. It was tough, and I think it was I lost my grandfather, who I was very close to, when I was about 20 or 21, and it shut me down, man. You can't just, people think you can just turn an on and off switch on your brain. It's not how it works. But whether you believe in medication or not, there's a lot of good medications out there that will help you turn that around. But you got to seek the help. But anyway, thanks for tuning in. There's my cat back there crying to get in. I appreciate y'all. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do. And take care. Peace.